Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our viewers here in Vermont, in the United States, and around the world. I'm Benjy Renton, reporting to you live from Middlebury, Vermont. Thank you so much for joining in on tonight's election night coverage and election night live stream. We'll have a lot of results coming into you today here at the 9 o'clock hour. We're going to focus on two main races in Vermont, the race for governor, as well as the race for lieutenant governor. So we're going to go through a little bit of the early maps that we've seen so far, with just about 25 to 30% of precincts reporting. Later in the night, we will also be showing you more of the national coverage, as well as some key electoral votes and races to watch. So let's first start off with a little bit of an overview of the races, and I'm going to show you some recent polling data from a September VPR, Vermont Public Radio, and Vermont PBS poll to show you some of the what voters would like to see in their governor and lieutenant governor candidates. So give me 1 second. I'm going to switch to our polling over there, and you should be able to see these data on the screen. So this was a Vermont PBS poll conducted in September. We're going to look at the governor's race first. Hopefully you see this on your screen. Phil Scott in the red, a Republican governor running for re-election to his third term as governor. One of the major pieces of news that we received today, which was first reported by 7 Days' Paul Heinz, was that Phil Scott has voted for Joe Biden in the presidential race. And we can have more on that news later after we go through some of this polling data. So as you can see, Phil Scott holds a steady lead in the polls for male, female, all different counties, all different regions of Vermont, as well as education level and age. A pretty steady lead compared to David Zuckerman. Zuckerman is currently the incumbent lieutenant governor. Now let's look at the lieutenant governor's race, which Zuckerman is not running for. He chose to run for governor, but we have Molly Gray, who's a Democrat, versus Scott Milne, a Republican. Here we see kind of there's a little bit of a tighter race and mixed with a number of other candidates, and we can go through some of those third-party candidates later in the night. But there you are, and there's the current polling that we have from September, which is the most recent data. This is a survey of 600 Vermonters conducted in partnership with Rich Clark at Castleton University. And the percentages that you see are weighted for each kind of demographic area according to the latest edition of the census. Let's look at the latest electoral votes here statewide. They're still obviously tallying the votes. The AP has called the governor's race for Phil Scott a Republican. He was currently leading as of the last time that we collected these data, which was about 5 to 10 minutes ago, with 67,000 votes to David Zuckerman's 27,000 votes. With the lieutenant governor's race, it's a little tighter. We have 52,000 votes for Molly Gray, a Democrat, versus 44,981 votes for Scott Milne, a Republican. These are some of the early data that you have from the Vermont Secretary of State, which looks at this map that you see here is the governor's race, and we'll have all of these maps updated as soon as we can on the Middlebury campus's website at middleburycampus.com. You can look over there and you can see our live updating election coverage maps. As we can see, Phil Scott kind of holds that steady lead in a lot of the towns. I don't think on this map that we see any race that has been called for any town that has David Zuckerman won with a simple majority. So you can see Phil Scott leads in the towns that are currently reporting. With the lieutenant governor's race, it's a little more stratified along the party, the Democrat and Republican lines for Molly Gray for lieutenant governor and versus Scott Milne. You can see some of the towns that are reporting there. Let's also take a minute to look at turnout. This is a bit of a confusing map, but we'll have a better idea of kind of what turnout is later in the night. But as you can see, the kind of as you get to the green and the blue, you start to see 80% to 90% of the registered voters in that town turned out. And I have to say, because Vermont had early voting, we had many Vermonters that they voted early by mail. And you can see those turnout numbers are actually quite high. So that's kind of all we have for the local Vermont races. I'd also like to mention one other race, Taylor Small, who's running for a state legislative position in Chittenden County. She is the first openly transgender lawmaker and the fifth transgender lawmaker in the nation to win an elected office. And so those are the kind of the races that we're looking at just to kind of go through some of the other races that we're looking at on the statewide level. Obviously, in addition to governor, lieutenant governor, there's also state treasurer Beth Pierce, a Democrat running for re-election. Secretary of State Jim Condos, also a Democrat running for re-election. Auditor of Accounts and Attorney General are also some major races that we could be looking at. Within Addison County, which is the county that Middlebury College is located, we have the Addison Senate race, which there are 2 state senators currently held by Ruth Hardy and Chris Bray, all running for re-election. We also have the Addison House. We are in District 1. There are 5 districts plus the Addison-Rutland district that we're all tracking, as well as locally in the town of Middlebury, we have the High Bailiff and Justice of the Peace races. Also a race of note to look at in Washington County, the High Bailiff currently a race with Asa Skinder, who is a junior at Middlebury College, running for the position of High Bailiff. And so that's another race that we're going to be looking at tonight. Also, we'll kind of just take a brief second to look at some of the national races. Give me 1 second. I'll pull up the New York Times map that we see here. And you can look at how the Electoral College maps are looking nationally. We currently have Joe Biden in the lead with 119 electoral votes and Donald Trump with 93 electoral votes. The Associated Press has called Donald Trump for Florida, but there are often some discrepancies between the different news media organizations. We're also carefully watching Ohio, where Joe Biden is up slightly, but Ohio is a critical race to watch. Also, we're watching Senate races in Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Missouri, Montana, North Carolina, as well as Texas and South Carolina. So these are some of the races that we're watching. Just to kind of recap, some of the swing states or the states that we are watching tonight include Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So these are some of the states that we're looking at very, very closely. With specifically to Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina. If Joe Biden wins even one of those states, he is a solid favorite to win the presidency. And if President Trump wins all 3, both candidates still have realistic paths to the presidency. So that's all we have for now. We're going to have more of these live broadcasts as the night comes through. So definitely save this page on your YouTube channel and you can see, hopefully we'll have one at around 10 o'clock. Where we'll be able to get some more data on Vermont statewide races and hopefully get a clearer picture of the national race as well. So hold this page. We'll be back soon. And thank you all so much for tuning in.